Hello, good evening. Today we're talking about quality education in the COVID era. I'm hoping that there might be some questions towards the end and we can discuss those, or even during the video. If you have any questions, feel free to send them and I'll see if I can answer. I'm going to actually focus on my camera that is recording the presentation, which is going to YouTube, but I just want to make sure that you're seeing the screen and the PowerPoint. I'll go over the PowerPoint and then we can talk more later. So, quality education in the COVID era. We're going to talk about the goals for each grade level. We're going to talk about resources and some advice that I have for parents and teachers. And we're going to talk about we're going to discuss some future topics that we'll be looking at later on. So let's, I'll give it about a few seconds and then we'll go ahead and move on to the next set of slides. So let's go ahead and look at the first thing that is important. Children spend about 18,200 hours in school from kindergarten to 12th grade. They have about an average of 8 hours a day, 8 hours of school a day, and 175 days of school each year. At the end of this time, it saddens me that they graduate 12th grade without knowing what they want to do sometimes when they graduate and what their talent skill set is. We need to be better stewards, or let us be better stewards of how we can make the most of those 13 years. We can definitely do better. And in this PowerPoint presentation, I'm hoping to share with you some ways to help your students to flourish in their education. So remember, we spend about 18,000 hours with students. And at the end of that time, it's really sad that some of them still don't know what they want to do when they grow up. And that's okay. People don't need to know specifically that they want to become pediatric orthopedic surgeons, but having some direction, right? Some people know they don't want to do anything in medicine, and that's okay. But just have some direction, because the challenge we're having now is that we have students who are graduating high school, going to college, and still don't know what they want to do while they're in college, and then they graduate college and they still don't know what they want to do. So what if we start having those conversations earlier on? We have 18,000 hours. Let's do better in how we use that time with students. That's part of what I'm trying to say. But I will give us the scope of what students learn in school. I know it's the COVID era. People are concerned about online and, is my child getting everything that they need? I will be answering those questions in this presentation. So we know that students are spending 13 years or 18,000 hours, and we need to do better in helping them figure out direction. Some of the children graduate and they go off to college and they take remedial courses in college, pre-algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2. Some of them take writing 090. Nothing wrong with the remedial courses. However, what I'm concerned about is if they've spent 18,000 hours with us, could we not have better giving them materials to help them flourish so when they get to college, they don't have to repeat courses that they took in middle school and high school? So these are some of the things that I really want to address over the next series of videos. We need to help our children master the content better so when they get to college, they're not repeating content all over again. There are elements which might have to do with the intellectual ability of a student, but that is definitely not always the case for what we're seeing. There are some universities where 50% of students are repeating pre-algebra and algebra 1. 50% in some colleges of students repeat some content from pre-algebra and algebra 1. That tells us that we have to revise and review what we're doing. I believe that the COVID season has actually given us an opportunity to better understand how best to make the most of our time. So if children are spending, as I said, 18,000 hours in school, and some of them are graduating not knowing what they want to do, how well can we help them by revising how we teach? These are some of the things that we need to keep in mind. COVID has forced us into a new paradigm in some ways, and we should take advantage of that paradigm and help more students to flourish by focusing on mastery and efficiency in instruction. So let's look at some ways to do this. Now, again, as I said, some of the challenges I think I attribute to some of this to outdated teaching practices or methods that do not inspire curiosity and excellence in learning. That's why students get to college and sometimes have to repeat content all over again. Now, let me just say this about special education. I have worked with a few students in special education, but I want us to be careful how we handle this issue during the COVID crisis, because we do not want students who are trying their best to be frustrated. So we need to strive to teach with the fundamentals in mind. When people master, then we move on to the next level. Let's not give someone something to do when they haven't mastered the step before it. And so I know some students that I've worked with in special education were giving their best, and the challenge is that if they're giving their best, but then you're judging them based on how you've always judged students in the past where you had a standard classroom. Some of these students will get frustrated and some of them might even give up. So let us be very careful in how we work with students in special education. I'll make a special session on that and maybe even invite somebody in special education to talk to us. So let us teach step by step and monitor mastery. I've said this before, that we look at the current situation in certain countries and people are trying to figure out what's best. So parents have to also look at what their child needs and see how they can best help them, or how they can help them best. So we need to refine how education is taking place during this time. So this is a quick high school chart. So I'm going to do a chart for each of the courses. So this is a quick high school chart. We know that kids in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade will take some of these courses. Now, I have never taught anything in art or gym or music, so I'm not going into any of those, but I'm going to focus on the core subjects that I have done work in. My background is in science and mathematics, but I've also written a few books and I love to write, so I have some background in English as well. And so I have some recommendations for curriculum, but this is not so much about the curriculum yet. I will talk about my math curriculum specifically, but this is about if you're in 9th grade, you know that you need to take either Algebra 2 or Geometry, or in some cases Algebra. You need to take English, which most 9th graders will take, World History, Physical Science. 10th grade, you take Algebra 2, English 10. Again, there's curriculum that I can recommend like Notgrass, but there's specifics for the 10th grader, history, biology. One of the things I will recommend, or one thing I've seen that is really neat, is when you take English and history and combine them into an integrated course, that's actually very powerful, especially during this time. If you have to homeschool your kids and you're trying to be very efficient, imagine if they're studying World War II, but then they read books about people like Anne Frank, right? So they're reading a book about World War II, they're reading about World War II, but then they're also reading a literature book that matches the timeline of what was going on during World War II. So this is just one example, an integrated approach of English and history. I think that could be one approach you can use, and there's a curriculum called Notgrass that does that, and I think Omnibus also does that. If you have any questions on any of these curriculums, please do not hesitate to email me and I can share more with you on that. So this is the high school structure that we have for kids. We can break it down and look into more detail, but the idea is we know what kids need to do in high school, right? And so how can we help them finish the coursework for each of these in high school? Before I give you the middle school and elementary school, I do want to talk briefly about mathematics. We know that they can either do Algebra 2 or Geometry in 9th grade, and then they do the other subject that they didn't do in 10th grade. And then we move on to 11th grade with pre-calculus and 12th grade with calculus or statistics. Again, this is just a standard high school sequence in Minnesota. So before I go on, I do want to mention quickly that we have put together our math curriculum options. If you want to use them, let me know. The prices I think are very reasonable, and I will share more on that. I am going to do a 50% of our curriculum option, one of the options for all the courses pretty much till September 15th. So if anybody's looking for pre-algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2, geometry, or pre-calc, you're basically going to be paying about $100 for that whole curriculum if you want it. If you want tutoring along with it, then I have that option at a very reasonable price. So 50% off till September 15th in case you're interested in a math curriculum. And this is called the Tools for Mastering Mathematics series. And I'm putting together the final set of videos, or I'm putting together videos for all of them, and you can subscribe and watch the videos, use them with your course, or get tutoring. This is the course page. I'll share that later on, but as I said, if you do it now, it's about $125, 50% off for the curriculum, or if you want tutoring, we'll give you 25% off too if you sign up before September 15th. So that's just a quick summary of some of what we have to offer for mathematics. Remember, math for middle school and high school. Okay, so let's talk about a few things. We have an opportunity for education to be refined. What actually matters? That's the question. I think that the COVID situation has given us an opportunity to ask ourselves, what are we trying to accomplish? And what are we trying to help our students do with the 18,000 hours that they give us? We have an opportunity right now to ask ourselves, how do we want to refine what we're teaching and why we're teaching it? So what actually matters? Number two, students need to start getting together. They need to start having get-togethers, sometimes maybe over Zoom, but they need to start encouraging themselves also during this time as far as education strategies and success. I think we need to see more study groups growing because, again, you don't want your children to fall behind. So I think those study groups will be good for them. Number 3, our education system needs to become more efficient. There's too much duplication without mastery. I've said this many times. Some of you might have heard me say it. There's too much duplication without mastery. So we have students that take pre-algebra in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, sometimes repeating similar concepts in those 4 years. Again, teachers, thank you for all you do. But I'm just sharing now in terms of how can we better help our students to grasp the concepts, to master the concepts, and also to enjoy the process. This calls for a dialogue. And I think this coronavirus season has given us a chance to have that discussion. What is the long-term vision for our children? What is the long-term vision for your child? What is the plan beyond where they're at now? It's not bad to just have a sketch of the long-term plan. And then, should we be having career discussions earlier on? I think we need to have that. Let me know what you think. But I think we need to start having career discussions earlier on. Sometimes middle school, might be high school, but maybe middle school, right? Elementary school might be too early. But let me just tell you this. In Nigeria, here's how we do it. When you graduate elementary school, and I'm not saying this is the only way or the best way, but when you graduate elementary school, you go to high school, the first 3 years, we have a 7th through 12th grade series. So it's 7th through 9th grade and 10th through 12th grade. When you're at the end of 9th grade, you actually have to decide what you want to study. Now, I know that sounds strange, but basically in 9th grade, I had to fill out, when I went into 10th grade, I had to essentially say, I want to go into the science track. I want to become a medical doctor. Or some of my friends said, I want to be an engineer, or I want to be a teacher. Well, actually, nobody said they wanted to be a teacher. That's sad. But anyways, that's another day's topic. But nobody said they wanted to be a teacher. But everybody, because I have the list of 424 people that I graduated with, and I don't believe I saw anybody listing teaching as one. So again, thank you to all our teachers for investing in us. And I hope that the teaching profession will grow more and more in Africa, where people are, in Nigeria, but also in Africa as a whole, where people are selecting that I want to be a teacher. But I graduated with 424 people. They chose what they wanted to do, but some of those decisions were made at the end of 9th grade. Can you believe that in 10th grade, I essentially had to make that decision that I am going to be in the science class. So I didn't take history, I didn't take government. None of those were required for me because I was in the science track. So it was a lot of chemistry, physics, math, advanced math. And so we do it that way in Africa, where you basically pick what you want to study as early as 10th grade. When you graduate high school, you can't actually get into the university without choosing what you want to study. So you have to go in with an option. I'm not saying that's the only option or that's the best option, but what I am saying is, in America, we might have gone to the other extreme. Let's not talk about career till further notice. Well, I don't think that's very effective right now, especially people who go to college, not knowing if they actually want to go to college or if what they want to study is in the college they're going to. Why don't we start having these discussions earlier on? Let's have a more efficient education system that allows for conversations about careers. Okay, so that's just my thoughts on careers. Okay, middle school. This is middle school. We have a chart. We can look at the middle school. We can see that middle school generally is 6th through 8th grade. But let's just say 5th grade for a second, because I don't have room on my PowerPoint slide on the next slide. So let's just put 5th graders here. So in 5th grade, again, they're doing a form of pre-algebra. They're doing English 5, Social Studies 5, and Science 5, General Science. So you have all these things they might do in 5th grade. 6th grade, another pre-algebra. Now notice that in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. Now I know that some people will say their school is different. But here's the deal, and I own textbooks for all the grade levels. So I'm saying this, as I've studied all the textbooks for all the grade levels for mathematics, I have realized that some of them carry over too much duplication. Nothing wrong again in reviewing with students, but the problem comes when we have 8th and 9th graders who still don't like math, and some of them who are not necessarily good at math. Now, if you're going to talk about the math brain debate, let me just put this on the side, first of all, that one of the winners of the Math Olympiad event a few years ago also won the spelling bee. How about that for interesting? So I get it. Some people have an extra aptitude or an extra enjoyment for mathematics, but it doesn't mean that we should tell our children, you don't have the math brain, so you can sit to the side. You don't have to do more math. No, we can work hard. We can remember the neuroscience research that shows neuroplasticity, that we can keep growing in our thinking and mastery of materials that we didn't know how to do before. So we need to encourage our students to apply themselves to master the material. So in 5th grade, if you're learning fractions, learn those fractions like you will never learn them again. Because if you treat it that way, you're more likely to give your best and step up your game. And if you step up your game, guess what? You wouldn't have to learn it from scratch in 6th grade. So imagine if we have this dialogue across grade lines. 5th grade teachers talk to 6th grade teachers, talk to 7th grade teachers, and let's really fine tune what we're trying to do. Again, I believe the coronavirus has given us a chance to refine education, what we're trying to accomplish, and what are we trying to accomplish. This is the opportunity to really ask ourselves, is our current education system efficient in America? My answer is no, far from it. So therefore, what do we do to fine-tune it so that teachers get more freedom to do what they love to do rather than feeling like, oh, I have to finish this syllabus again, I have to finish this course, and yet our students are not flying high in mathematics, science, and some other courses. Those are just some things to think about. So in middle school, they can go all the way to Algebra 1. Some students do pre-algebra in 8th grade, and that's okay if they need to do it, but this is just giving you a scope for middle school. Elementary school, I'm not going to spend too much time here, but we know that, again, there's different curriculums. I can talk about apology and I can talk about other curriculums, but my point is we know some of the things that we need to learn. Each of these grade levels has specifics. Maybe I can step back and zoom into each grade level. But this is just telling you, since you know what your child needs to learn, how can you help them in the midst of the current situation? In the midst of the coronavirus situation, you know that your child needs to learn Science 5. You get a 5th grade science book and you just make it into a fun activity, hopefully, of learning and growing. Get them a good book to read. Maybe they like a certain sport. Maybe they can read a biography and write a paper about the book they're reading. Now they're reading for fun and they're writing about what they're reading. So that's just something to keep in mind as well when it comes to making learning fun. So I'm going to wrap up here shortly, a few more slides. Students can make time to go through an overview of their coursework. I would say if you can do that now, get those materials for the course that the student is going into. For mathematics, as I said, we have a list of all the topics that students need to learn from kindergarten to calculus. So if you need that list, or if you want to see where your child fits in, or if you want a free assessment, let me know and I'll pass on some of those documents. For science, the classes are quite the same all around the country. What I mean is, when somebody says they're in biology, it's more straightforward than if they say, I'm in Algebra 1. Because an Algebra 1 textbook, generally the concepts are about the same, but it might vary in terms of what is emphasized at what time. But in a standard chemistry textbook, there's a series of topics. In a standard physical science textbook, there's a series of topics. So that's why I don't think that, so I've done some work in math review and refining the whole curriculum. But for science, I don't think we need to dissect it as much because the textbooks are quite standard. We also need to inspire students to be lifelong learners. We need, you're never too long to start asking questions about possible careers and job shadowing. Students can get a document started where they document their experiences in this area. So we need to start asking our children, what do you love to do? What job would you like to shadow? And we could, well, it'd be strange to shadow during the coronavirus era. So maybe let's go on YouTube and let's watch about, the life of a doctor. What do doctors do? What do orthopedic surgeons do? Oh, I have a friend who's a surgeon. Let's call him and do a video conference chat. So the idea is let's have our children start thinking about careers at a younger age, because believe it or not, some people know what they want to do as young as 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade because of the passion they have for that thing. It doesn't mean they have to commit to do that necessarily, but gives them some direction. Now in America, the advantage we have over some countries that do the tracking system is that children get an exposure to more. You guys study, in America, they study history and they also study chemistry. In Nigeria, for example, I didn't study any history because I was on the science track. So there are some advantages to the American model, but we do need to ask our children to start thinking about it, because now I know people who graduate college and still don't know what they want to do. So I think it might be good to start that discussion earlier. Again, there's nothing wrong if you don't know what you want to do. I would recommend that you pick up some books, the strength finders, have some conversations with people who are in the career discussion world. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying let's think about the future and prepare those people ahead. So I'm going to leave us with a verse, though. One verse from Proverbs that stands out. Where there's no vision, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. So when there's no vision, we get into serious trouble, right? And so I'm encouraging us to let's sit down and draw up a vision plan for our children and encourage them to give their best in whatever they're doing. I think that would be a good approach to keep in mind. And I'm going to come back to more topics in the future. So don't get left behind. Keep your child ahead of the game. Let's take ownership of our learning. Let's apply ourselves to excellence. Let teachers, we need to have dialogue about how best to help the children make the most of the 18,000 hours that they give us. Let us refine our tools so that the 5th grader going into 6th grade knows what he knows and knows what he doesn't know. And when he goes into 6th grade, he says, excuse me, I still don't know how to divide decimals. So then his new teacher can help him, or her new teacher can help refine what they need to do with their pre-algebra skills. I want to leave us with a few things. For our future discussion, we will discuss, this is called debt-free college or debt-free degree. I'm going to be discussing this in the future. This is to help students start thinking about how to go to college essentially for free as they prepare long term. So let's have a vision. And then if we help our students to be more efficient in school, well, maybe we can get them reading books like this about leadership. This one is by Brother Bile Akani, who had a huge impact on my life growing up. So I would encourage us to encourage our students to start thinking ahead. How can I prepare for college? So when I go to college, it's essentially free. Or, I'm paying for it, no student loans. That is possible if we have a long-term vision. And so finally, this is the math curriculum again, Tools for Mastering Mathematics. If you're interested in our curriculum, which covers pre-algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2, geometry, and pre-calculus, let me know and I will send you more information. So thank you for your time. I look forward to sharing more in the future. And please, if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, feel free to share them. And I will answer them in the next session. So I'll probably do this again next Monday. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you for your time and have a blessed week.